Five, four, three, two, one. I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. I launched a little late today, so I'm going to double check the sound as I go, which I think I can do. We'll see. I know how to hit these buttons. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. I wore red. We'll see. Just to see. I know how to hit these buttons. There it is. The sound's working. Let's go over to Periscope. And we'll get that working too. I can do this all on the fly. I'm getting so good at this, right? I don't even need the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So for those of you who don't get here early, you're going to miss the coffee because it's almost gone. So let's dive into the news. So far, we don't have anything working that way. Okay, over here we go. Microsoft announces a new privacy search engine, okay, and it's called CodeFuel. Its search technology division that supports publishers has launched the Bravado private search engine. Apparently, CodeFuel is Israeli-based, which I didn't know. And for those of you running search engines, what I'm interested in is a search engine that has a time parameter on text searches. It's annoying to me that everybody copies Google's interface and it is basically blank. So when you ask a question about, let's just say, Microsoft Word, you can get answers from 1997 in there if they're popular, and the menus aren't the same. You know, at least it'll be 5, 7 years ago. What you need is one that says, okay, this is a technology question. This is like a minimum that these tech companies should have. This is a technology question. He's not looking for an answer for the oldest version. I mean, you could always put in an old version and get a reasonable answer, or override it. But in general, I always have to stop because I get these answers that are no longer applicable to the version that's out there that I'm using. You know, like OpenOffice or others, or Firefox, or something that is continuously being updated. So I'll be looking at that, and I showed you an evaluation method. You type in Washington and see what comes up. It's a very, very nice evaluation method. It might be another good one might be Firefox. Just type it in and see what comes up, or Excel. See if you get old information, because it's ambiguous, and that's the way to test a search engine. But I will be experimenting with this Bravado private search. I use DuckDuckGo right now, but it's not very good, I have to say. It's not complicated, and it's easy. At least the time setting for Google, you have to click twice to get a more recent time setting. The problem with DuckDuckGo is you get the recent year, and then it doesn't have any more options. And there really should be like recent year, recent 5 years, or something like that, like a stock chart has. But for some reason, they don't want to give you more than 2 choices, and then you got to do a custom link. It's really dumb. Okay, so let's go over here. There's some really odd trademark gibberish in Amazon. You know, a lot of stuff you buy on Amazon, you might have 1,000 vendors. You know, I use eBay. I tell you, I don't use Amazon much, but Amazon is not that different because they don't vet vendors to that great an extent. And so you can find, sometimes I go there, I always use a private search. Always use private search because Amazon will retarget you all over the place. But apparently on Amazon, there's things popping up like BSTOEM and MZOO and SHSTFD, which the author says sounds a little like SHTFACED. Let's see if Google blocks this video. Anyway, which I thought so too as soon as I saw it. And the reason this alphabet soup gobbledygook is going on is because in the vast, you know, this is an effort by vendors, by third-party Amazon merchants, to look credible. And so they file a trademark. 14% of all U.S. trademarks were filed by Chinese, which I thought was interesting. up from 10% the year before. And there's a couple of ways you can give yourself a boost. One is fake reviews, right? But if you get busted for farming fake reviews, and we talked about that the other day with the shed at Dulwich, you can get these weird brands. And one of the reasons these oddball names are taking off, if nothing else, is that they're unique. They actually come up with letters that no one else has. And so they have an easier path to approval. And that's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. So, now the trademark office requires applicants to be represented by a lawyer licensed in the U.S. Apparently, I think that's true about the patents. I'm not sure that's true about the trademark office. I think they got a registered trademark. It is, but you can trademark something just in use, is my understanding, and that's not up to date. Don't take this as legal advice. Okay, and now let's get over to Stephen Yu's latest article. I always like chiming in on Stephen Yu, and he's tackling this month. He does about once a month. How do you tell when somebody's being over promoted or under promoted? And it's a very interesting approach. Okay, he says marketers are obsessed with KPIs, open rates, and click-throughs. And what I've always said in direct mail is that if you mailed everybody in your customer file, you would get orders. You would get orders for the 10-year-old buyers. I had a client who mailed the 10-year-old buyers. He sold office furniture, and so past customers from 10 years ago would sometimes place a big order. So he just kept mailing them, and because you can get a big order in business to business, he felt it worked. I'm not gonna. I think there could have been better ways to do it, but he made something like $80 million when he sold out, so I think he did okay. So marketers tend to look at open rates and click-through rates, and part of the problem in that is in email. We don't know the open rates in the catalog, but we do know that it gets repetitive views. I was dormant with Land's End because I was part of a network, a buying network that allowed me to buy from another menswear company, and they had pretty good stuff. It was a little more expensive, I think, than Land's End, and not quite as good, but it was good. And if you watch the sales, you could figure it out. So for about 10 years, I was dormant on Land's End, but they kept mailing me every now and then. Great program. So I think it's a little easier. I think the idea of driving your company on recency alone is an interesting one. Is that you just reduce the frequency over time to the people that haven't come back. And in email, now the problem in email is it's so darn cheap that you say, oh, let's just do them all the time. And Stephen, at the end of the article, which we may get to the end, but I'll just say, at the end he says, if you're mailing everybody twice a day, you're mailing too much, emailing. And that's the danger. For all the talk of junk mail for all these decades, junk mailers are very careful not to mail too many catalogs because it costs them millions every drop. Often, if you're mailing 1 million pieces, it might not cost you $1 million, but if you're mailing, when I worked with Cabela's, they were mailing 5 million at a time. And so easily that's real money. It's a real risk. And there's no sense wasting it. There's no sense mailing to people who didn't want them. And that was their biggest problem. They were mailing the hunters fishing catalogs and the fishermen hunting catalogs because of the way they used recency. And we cured them of that. And they said we made $2.5 million the first time we worked with them. First mailing we modeled. And I got my first bow and arrow. I got my first bow, especially as a gift from Dick Cabela. He said, you pick anyone you want. For $3 million or $2 million, you can pick any bow in our catalog. So that's how I got my first bow. Anyway, but looking at open rates, it's not necessarily. I place orders through catalogers partly because I want to see what they're up to, and then I get a lot of emails, and I mark as read every email I get. I always clean them out every day on every computer. Well, on my 3 main computers and Gmail. So I'm not sure if that shows an open rate or not. I really don't know. I'm not an expert in email. Um, but I do open a lot of them. I actually look at them. And so that probably keeps me at the top of the list. But Stephen, the best part of this article is he dives into attribution quite a bit. He says if you want to know who's over promoted, adequately promoted, or under promoted, you must merge promotional history data, not just for emails, but for every channel, and response history data, which includes click-through, browse, and conversion data on the individual level. Now, we do all of that for catalogers. We do all of that on mailings within a modeling window. What we don't do is keep track of who got 20 pieces of mail in a year and who got 5. We have a matrix for that. We have a way to score it. And we even have a way to vary between big catalog, small catalog, postcard. We also have email can be put into that, and it can even be sub-segmented by topic, by item category. So we have a new client that we're working with that wants to do that, and I hope we do. But it'll be a little work, and that's what Stephen says. Now, here's the problem. Most attributions are done on a channel level. Most don't connect all those dots, and that's the hard part. And if you're doing, if you're generally driving traffic to the stores and you're doing Google AdWords or you're doing retargeting on people who visited your website, you don't really know if your customers are visiting or it's prospects visiting. So you don't know what else. And if you're doing regular broadcast TV, you don't know who's watching, whether it's your customers or your prospects. So there's this cloud of advertising that's going on. There's more targeted advertising like email and maybe SMS or uploading your list to a Facebook and putting an ad in their news feed, which you can do those things, but most people don't. And then if you look at those things, then you can put this together. But on the higher level, the real air cover, the TV broadcast, you don't know who's watching. You don't know if their TV is on. You don't know if they're seeing it. And I think that's also true to a large extent with retargeting and stuff that's coming up on the side of their website. Whether they're ignoring it or not, you don't know. Okay? So the goal is individual level attribution, but that's a really difficult thing. And the sheer volume of data of online activity and complexity of matchback due to the frequent nature of online promotion says you'd be lucky if you could just get past last click. In other words, you clicked and opened an email and then you went to the website and ordered. That's not so hard. But that whole process is very, very hard. Okay? You'd be lucky if you could get past last click attribution on an individual level for merely the last quarter. Exactly true. And what I like to do is I like to think about it as a hierarchy and think about, the mail is the highest contact cost for most merchants, e-commerce merchants. In B2B, there might be a phone out, but so let's start with that. And the best thing to start with is actually holdout testing and to see if the mail seems to be worth it. The one thing about mail is if you hold it out, you'll see an impact in your overall customer performance during that time. You can look at the people you mailed, you can look at the people you held out, and you can see a differential. And oftentimes it's significant. And oftentimes it amounts to a 300%. I've done this test, a dozen times at least for different mailers, and it's usually about a 300% based on a pretty tight matchback. But with one client, we noticed that next door neighbors were ordering a lot because in mail you can have pass along. I know this brand. I've ordered from it. I got a catalog last month. Hey, you like my couch? Here's where I got it. And then we get an order. And when we did that, it was 900% return on investment. So we knew the value of mail, and we knew that it was doing its work. After that, we use that for offer testing. So I advocate that first off, start with those basics. It's a lot easier to model mail It's a lot easier to test mail, and and as far as frequency testing, recency is a great plan. You can try holdout testing on email, but again, it's difficult to see much because your response rates are generally pretty low, and you don't know if they looked at them, even if they opened them. But Stephen has some good tips, and he knows more about email than I do, so I encourage you to read the article. It's complicated, and there's a lot of data to throw around. So I would say, don't do it on your don't do it on your mainframe, and probably you don't even want to do it in your regular marketing. Get an abstract. Get a score per customer, and use that as your definitive starting point, and then test the score per customer contact with the higher scored. The more frequently contacted, send them a special offer, but A/B test across those parameters that Stephen lays out. So you've got what you think is over promoted, you've got middle, and you've got under promoted. Send them a separate offer. Send them a postcard. See what happens. And you can see their reaction in another medium that's very tight and easier to measure. That's my idea for today. Stephen, of course, I'll copy you on this, and let's have a conversation. We always say we're gonna, and we just don't. So I'm John Miglash. Like and share. Happy Valentine's Day. I hope your friends think you're really smart. Have a great day. Bye-bye.